Good morning, guys and girls. Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to a brand new week and welcome to the next weekly market breakdown. So, as always, kickstart with the XY, the most important chart, the only one we need to really analyze with some certainty to be able to get a real good guide about where the rest of the market could be heading for the week ahead. Now, last week was relatively monumental in terms of DXY actually finally reached that 100 region. Now, those of you that watch this weekly market breakdown on a regular basis will know that I've been kind of mentioning that since around August, September time, that potentially the market is going to be reaching for and heading for that region. And lo and behold, sort of 6 months later, we finally made it. Okay. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean now potentially the market could sell off? Okay. Potentially, yes, absolutely. But are we going to sell it? Okay, are we going to sell it? And hopefully, you guys are standing there with two things in mind. We're only going to sell this market if we see a solid break of structure or if we see that sellers are coming into the market. Okay, without that happening, we are just attempting to pick the top of this market. Okay, and there is no sign whatsoever that the sellers are coming back into control yet. Now, we could be reaching for these levels up here, this 100.4 to 101, roughly speaking, which is the liquidity here. We could even be reaching for these highs up here, okay, back in March 2020. Okay, we could even be reaching for that level there as well. Now, if we look for the week, okay, we've got a bullish candle, okay, candle closed above the previous weekly high. We were pretty strong, pretty bullish, and therefore, what could we potentially expect this week? I think what we could expect is a little bit of a pullback to around these regions here before we then look at attacking that 100 level again. Okay, that would be my thought process right now. Okay. If we drop down onto the daily time frame, again, we've got very, very strong bullish pressure all the way up here. I did a video last week as well, just explaining the whole markets breaking these highs every single time on the day, and we're not breaking the lows. And as you can see, as it carried on throughout the week, we did exactly the same thing. So we broke the high, we didn't break the previous low. We broke the high, we didn't break the previous low. So it just goes to show that that kind of upside pressure is very, very strong. Okay, and when that upside pressure is very, very strong like that, we don't want to be going against it. Okay, we need a solid, serious reason to go against it. Now, what's happening right now, and this is Monday, so I don't really hold too much importance to it, but we have finally, for the first time in 7 days, roughly, 7 trading days, we have finally breached the low of the daily candle, okay, after that 100 rejection. So that's something to potentially signify that we can get this pullback that we want into a region where we could potentially actually buy this market from, okay, which is going to be somewhere around this level, maybe 99.5 even. And then we can look at continuing that trend and pushing up to the upside to retest 100 and potentially even higher. And again, it might not happen all in one week. This week might be the slow retracement of this market before it then goes for its second attempt, okay? So if we look on the daily, this is my kind of area of interest. There's not really much else on the daily to work from here. This is the previous high that we broke. This is a previous level of supply, which could turn into demand. So therefore, anything rejection-wise here could be interesting and telling us that we're ready to go for another attempt at the highs, okay? If we go down to the 4 hour, what have we got going on the 4 hour? So if we look on the 4 hour, what we can see is this. Obviously, we've got this anyway, we know this, but we've got this bullish order flow. So we've got the market making an ever so slight new high, coming back to that previous candle, and then we make another order block, we make another high, we come back into this candle, and up we go again. Okay, so right now, what could be happening is we could have had the beginning of this new high, which is here. Okay, we could be actually rejecting this kind of level here, 99.68. We've got the wick at this point here as well, which could be a liquidity grab. And therefore, what would be ideal opportunities this week would be buying this market anywhere around this region. And again, we're not going to buy this market until we see the signs to buy this market. Okay, right now, if we go down to the lower time frames like the 1 hour, what we're going to see is we're going to see bearish order flow. Okay, the gap is annoying. I like to leave the gaps out, but just for educational purposes, we've had the high created. We then had the low broken, okay, on the open, which again doesn't mean as much as it normally would if it was a smooth ride and transition there, but we're not lucky enough to have that because it's Monday morning. But we've broken the low, we've come back to the previous candle, which is this one here, and now it looks like we are going to continue that bearish order flow deeper into these levels, okay, which will give us a good opportunity to be going long on USD pairs when the time is right, okay. If we look on the 1 hour time frame, we've got this nice little order block here as well, which could be interesting. So thought process with DXY is hoping that we get this pullback into this region, and then also we've got those major levels here, which I did just talk about on the higher time frames, where if we see solid rejections in this region and solid changes of structure like we're seeing here, then potentially we could have that move to the upside. But for now, we do seem to be pushing lower on DXY and probably at least to these levels here. Okay, so that's DXY. So my overall, okay, it's not letting me change that. That's brilliant. I think my subscription's run out. Might need to redo that. Right, okay, so DXY bullish, but we're expecting maybe a pullback first, okay? If we go on to the weekly and we look at the likes of Aussie dollar USD, we've got a big rejection actually, finally, on USD, sorry, Aussie dollar USD. Okay, we've got quite a big rejection here. It's similar to other Aussie pairs as well. So it might actually signify that Aussie dollar is finally going to be making a bit of a change in terms of its recent move and its recent bias. So it's been very, very strong, Aussie, recently, especially when the DXY has also been strong at the same time. And therefore, what we could be in store for is we could potentially be in store for a reversal on Aussie. So that's something just to be aware of, okay? Aussie dollar USD is going to require that USD strength to find its feet down here as well, which we are expecting. So hopefully, again, we can find some positions on Aussie dollar USD in a bearish fashion. If you look at what we've got here as well, the daily, we've got that kind of break of structure on the daily. We've also got a break of structure there, which my guess is going to be the 4 hourly. Yep. So we've got two breaks of structure. We've got solid bearish pressure. We've got untapped order blocks here. Okay, we have got an untapped order block there, which could be just worth looking out for. And we've also got this kind of region here, which is where we've got this sort of consolidation before price made that new low. So in terms of the order block here, it's a bit of a tough one, but I'd probably say somewhere like that. Okay, so what I would like to see is to see this market pop back into this region to then be looking at shorts from 7,480, maybe even 7,500 if we get a rejection there. If we do keep going higher, then maybe it's going to revisit all the way up here. But overall, the bias is going to be bearish on this market, okay, and looking for dips into these regions here before looking for short positions and maybe a big turnaround, okay, maybe a big turnaround on Aussie dollar USD, and we could come. This week, if it does occur, we could be coming all the way down into that 7.2 region, which is about 230 pips. So like a 230 pip potential on Aussie dollar USD. Okay, so first target would be once you break this low here, be aware of regions like this. Okay, and that's the kind of setup that I'd like to see on Aussie dollar USD. So we'll go bearish on that. Let's have a look at some more. I'm going to skip through these a little bit quicker than normal. So Euro USD, bearish last week, couldn't quite break the low, so maybe we'll get that low broken this week if we have that bearish pressure on Euro and if we have that bullish pressure on USD. Where should we be selling it from? Okay, last week's weekly wick is right here, which is also an order block. So anywhere above this region, 1.094, what is that, 45 roughly. Be looking for selling from that region. This is the break of structure here. This is the daily time frame. So again, probably need to be patient and wait for this. Maybe 1.10 would be a nice level. And then also we've got the order blocks, which are roughly around this region here. Okay, so this nice and simple. I mean, it's probably easier for you guys to keep up if I just keep this as simple as possible. Anyway, this is the kind of area I'd be looking at. And also, if we do decide to retrace a lot further on USD, then we could even come up to 1.1050 before we then actually look for those short opportunities. But overall, my short bias on this definitely, unless we see some real change when it comes to Euro or USD. So that's 2 USDs done. Let's do gold. So gold on the weekly time frame. So last week, nice bullish candle, and this week already pushing. So first of all, that something that's quite important here is we are rejecting. We are at this point right now, which means is right now a good position to be buying? Okay, is it right now a good position to be buying? Now, it doesn't mean just because it's not a good position to be buying, we should be selling it. But what I'm saying is we do need to be patient. Now, we've got a weekly wick here, which would be nice to revisit. And then we have a potential much better setup. And then target wise, we could be pushing all the way up to 1990 this week. It does look like we are going to be heading towards that 1990, and we have a nice clean area right here to just fly through as well, which is good to see. If we go on the daily time frame, again, just highlighting that wick, which would be nice to get through, and then actually a big push from, I think if we break these kind of levels here, we can almost definitely see 1990 met. Okay, it's really gearing up for that. We saw these grabs of liquidity, and I did actually run through this with a couple of you guys last week. A lot of grabs for liquidities around that 1916 level, which, as we can see, pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times last week we dug, not last week, but in the last 2 weeks we've dug into those levels, and therefore what we can kind of expect now is to really see that market fly. Okay, really see that market fly and push up if, of course, we can break these levels right here. On the 4-hourly time frame, you can see now that daily we can just refine that just so that we've got this kind of 40 to 49 level. For me, would be that interesting point to be buying this market. But what I'd like to see personally is I'd like to see the market maybe even break this first, then come back and retest. But maybe that's a big ask for that to happen. But yeah, gold looking long. That's fine. Aussie dollar CAD, I've already sent this in the group. So overall, this market has been bullish. We're expecting potentially Aussie could turn now because a couple of good rejections over the last week. If we do expect it to turn, then where could we be selling this market from in a good place? Okay. Daily time frame shows us the order block is at this level here. Unfortunately, on the daily time frame yet, we still haven't got a break of structure. Okay, that's our BOS right here. We still haven't got that yet. On the 4-hour time frame, again, I'd probably say what we could see is we could see the market hopefully coming up to this 9420, 9425 level, take out any liquidity here, grab into this order block, and actually then look at doing the break of structure down here. Okay, that would be my favored move. Right now, though, as it stands, we've still got bullish order flow. Okay, right now we've still got bullish order flow. So we've even come into this region right now and we've rejected from it. Okay, which could drive us into this region and reject, but it could also mean that we're wrong and Aussie dollar isn't done yet. Okay, so overall, right now, Aussie dollar is still bullish, but that last week is giving us that insight that maybe things are about to change. Okay, so again, just be careful with Aussie dollar pairs. Let's do CAD JPY. There's probably no point doing CAD JPY. CAD JPY is absolutely flying. Do you know what? There's not really much point me doing this one either. I think if I go onto the daily time frame, if I was looking to buy this market, I'd be looking at this kind of level here, this order block. On the 4-hour time frame, we've got this sort of sneaky one here before the open as well. To be somewhere like this will be where I'll be interested in buying it, and then hopefully what we'll see is we'll see the markets take out these highs here, which is actually the 100 level, so that's also going to be a very key strong level for this market as well, so just be careful around that point. DAX right now, DAX. Really hard to call DAX right now. Really hard to call DAX right now because we've had a big push to the downside, we've had a big grab for liquidity, and then now we're rejecting on that upside. Now, if you look here, when we did something similar, we didn't really have that rejection on the upside, followed by a nice bearish candle. We didn't really have that, whereas this time we do. So with that said, I'd also be very careful with this market as well. I'd be looking, if I was to go with that current trend, I'd be looking at shorting from this point. If I go onto the daily time frame, order block sitting around this level here. So I'd probably look at short opportunities from this region, okay? I would just be really, really careful with this market, because what we could also see on, if we look at the other side of things, we could see that the market's made a new high, come back. Yes, it's broken, but is that potentially just a liquidity grab actually ready to keep pushing higher? The only thing is that the weekly candle in the last couple of weeks has signified that kind of continued bearish move and bearish pressure. So tough one, very tough one for Germany. But overall, I'd say bearish from those levels. If we look at Euro Aussie dollar, Euro Aussie dollar on the weekly. Euro Aussie dollar on the weekly, we are at major lows right now. We are grabbing liquidity from this region. Sorry, I can just hear someone outside, and I mean, my dog's probably going to go crazy on this recording. So Euro Aussie dollar. So weekly time frame, we had a bearish candle last week, but the issue that we have is we've rejected an area of liquidity. Okay, we've rejected an area of liquidity. So what we could be in store for is actually, told you what's going to happen. Okay, guys, sorry about that. So Euro Aussie dollar. As I said, just being careful, because although we've got that bearish candle, we've also got that rejection now from the area of liquidity that we just marked out on the weekly time frame, which is this wick here. Okay, so we just need to be a little bit careful that we don't see that chop and change around. And also with our expectation that Aussie dollar could potentially turn, then actually we could see this market come up and grab liquidity from the upside up here, or at least head for this target. Whether or not it grab liquidity, we'll have to wait and see what Aussie dollar wants to say. But that kind of means that this week I kind of favor the upside movement there. I don't really favor it because I don't necessarily think that euro is bullish, although I've got to look at these markets with you guys in a second. But as it stands at the moment, we are looking like we are moving in the bullish direction. Now we have got an order block sitting right here. We have also got an order block sitting right here. So there's a lot in the way for this to actually play out anyway. But we could potentially see us pulling up into these regions here of around 1.49, which again could be potentially 250 pips or so up for grabs. So just be aware of that. At the moment, it's looking okay. We've got that gap that was kind of created has already, see that gap that was created on open has already been tested. So if I just drop down to the hourly, we've already come and filled that gap, and then we've taken off from there, which means that buyers are in control of this market right now. So with regards to this one, if I was looking at buyers, it would be somewhere like this, 1.4620, and looking for the market to move up into target 1, target 2, and then eventually target 3. Again, it's going to really depend on euro for what happens. But that's my Euro Aussie dollar analysis. Again, just be careful, because overall it's bearish, but maybe we're going to start to see that change of direction. We've also had this area here, which would have been previous level of supply, now turned into demand. Okay, so a nice indication that maybe a turn of tables is due here. Let's have a look at EuroCAD. So EuroCAD is, I'm guessing, relatively similar. So we've had that rejection. Is the rejection from anywhere significant? It's underneath this level here, which obviously we have liquidity, and it's also around this level here, which of course there is going to be order blocks sitting around this region. Overall, though, we have to be still bearish on it. If we look on the daily time frame, it looks very similar to Euro Aussie, actually, to be honest. So Euro is going to be a tough one to call. At the minute, bullish order flow, but just be aware of any rejections around these kind of levels here. We can then actually just see the market continue its weekly move, which is overall bearish. Okay, but until these points, 1.38 would be a good level to look at it for Euro CAD. And otherwise, we could actually see it pop all the way back up into these regions. So maybe if you find the opportunity, there could be a long position on the cards for EuroCAD as well. So that's a couple of euros done. Let's just do a couple of, let's just do a GBP one. GJ is just too high. Just gone weekly. GA is going to be similar. So all the Aussie dollar ones look very similar. So just be careful of those. GBP CHF. No. GBP CAD. GJ just very high. All the Japanese yen and all of the Aussie dollar just look very, very similar. So to be honest, let me just go on GU and let's just have a look at what GU is doing. So if we can see that continued move on, if we can see that continued move on dollar to be strong, then we've also, look at that, we've actually broke that low last week. Okay, we eventually broke that low last week. So with that in mind, perfect opportunities on GBP USD shorts would be actually around these regions here, which is kind of where we are now. If we go on the 4 hour, we've got this kind of order block here, okay, which is in line with this one here. So somewhere like that, 1.31 even, maybe retesting 1.31 this week, and actually looking for short opportunities to make another new low. Okay, so that's my GBP one for you guys. And then if we look at NZDs, must have used this last week. Let's just delete everything off the chart. So NZD is also showing that sign of weakness, okay, because we've pushed up into this level, we've had those wicks testing these areas, and now we're having that bearish pressure. So today, NZD CAD, I'd probably expect that to, not necessarily today, sorry, this week, I'd probably expect to see that. If we're lucky, we can get pullbacks up to these regions here. If we're lucky. If we're lucky, we can get pullbacks up to that region there. And then after that, what we could potentially see is just see that market die down into these lows. Again, quite a lot of pips up for grabs this week. NZD CHF is probably going to be relatively similar. So we pulled into that order block there, which as you can see is already highlighted. And we've started to find that downside pressure. If we go into the daily time frame, again, now we are kind of stuck in a range because we're waiting for this low to be broken. Okay, waiting for this low to be broken before we even think about this market being overall bearish. But I think we can expect the low to be broken because we have a high here and we have a failure to make a new high, which means that the next logical move is to make a new low. Okay, and that new low is going to be underneath here somewhere, which is anywhere from about 30 to however far it wants to go, 30 plus pips for that. That's NZD CHF. UJ, and leave that alone. UJ is not really a market I trade, and that's it, guys. That's it. So, anyone that's in our crypto group as well, I did analyze BTC recently, and I believe my markings are all still on here. So it was so what I actually explained was how we were stuck in this range on BTC. Okay, stuck on this range from 43,400 to 36,000, which is obviously a massive range. Now this market is completely different than Forex. Okay, it's very manipulative. Now you think Forex is manipulative. This is about 10 times worse. Okay, this is about 10 times worse. So with regards to BTC, what we saw was all of the liquidity get taken out, all of these wicks above here, and then that complete change of structure, okay? And where did that happen? So if we have a look, we've got an order block right here, okay? That's the last bullish candle, and the highest candle is around this point there, and then now we've reached this level. So what will most likely happen here, okay, because at the minute we're stuck between these kind of two areas of where orders have come into the market. This one is where orders came into the market to push us up and make a new high. And then the halfway point for that was this one here. Okay, so this, hopefully this isn't too messy for you guys. I'm just trying to tidy it up a little bit. This is just a key level, so I'm going to keep that one on there. Yeah, that's just a key level of around 30,000. We'll keep that on there. But hopefully you can see that what's kind of happened here is we had this level of demand, okay, which has now been broken. We then retested this lower area of demand, we rejected from it. And now what we've done is we've come back up and retested and maybe using this level here as our new supply, which basically means that this trend of higher low, higher high is now going to be broken. And what that could mean is that BTC will begin its downfall once again. And this time, I really do believe that if we're going to break this 32K level, then we will be heading down to around 20K. And again, technicals do work the same. There's just a lot of manipulation. We've got this kind of region right here, $17,500 to $20,000. Okay, if Bitcoin halves in price, there is, and especially if we break this floor right here, there are going to be a lot of people selling this. Okay, there's going to be a lot of people getting rid of it because they're worried about it going to nothing or whatever they think. So again, all of this stuff, this technical stuff, it all works the same across every single market, especially with regards to the order blocks and all that kind of stuff. So even here, the lowest candle and the last bearish candle is this one here. What happened when we got into this point? Okay, after making a new high, we pulled back, okay, into this level, and then we made a new high. And that new high was, roughly speaking, 33,500 pips in the space of 13 weeks. Okay, huge amounts. But what you have to be aware of is if you get it in the wrong direction, you're going to be losing a lot of pips and a lot of money at the same time. So I don't encourage anybody trading it, but just to give you an idea of how it works within this market. And what this will also do in turn is it will mean that other assets within the crypto space, altcoins, will also drop. Okay, so if we look at the likes of, if we look in the last 3 weeks, we've had bearish movements. If we look on Ether in the last 2 weeks, we're now having bearish movements. If we look at Ripple, we are now having 3 weeks of bearish movements. As you can see, the same thing happens across it all. 1, 2, 3 weeks. 1, 2 weeks. 1, 2, 3 weeks. It's all the same, okay? It's all the same because Bitcoin is the king of this market, okay? So what happens is, again, similar to DXY, if we look at DXY and we can kind of have a rough idea of where a lot of these currency markets are going, it's similar to BTC. If we can understand where BTC is going, we can also understand where some of these cryptos are going to go as well, okay? But yeah, just to give you a little insight of that. Anyway, I hope you guys find it useful. And if you've got any questions, feel free to ask. And I will